Welcome back to the channel, it's Andy Nguyen, and today we're talking about the Windex R2, which is the successor to the ultimate work keyboard because it has a full-size numpad with a 2U0. To join the ranks of affordable keyboards, now with Bluetooth, to really open up your desk space while still maintaining full functionality. And they're teasing us with a Southpaw option. Let's get into it. This video is sponsored, but my opinion is always my own. Don't gotta worry about it. I'll go hard when I need to, and if they're doing a good job, I'll make sure I note that as well. With that, let's get into the cons of the original Windex. Aesthetically, I just thought the front badge was a little boring. Not a huge con, just personal preference. And the colors were kind of eccentric, not as neutral for a work environment. The sound was pretty good, but the assembly with the top silicone piece, it was bad because it would stretch, it would move. At the time, I didn't really care about Bluetooth because I didn't think it was possible, so it was kind of a fever dream anyway. Most of the time, Bluetooth and aluminum cases did not mix, but now we have it. And the last thing was, there's some compatibility issues with Mac devices. What's the difference about R2? Well, the main differences now are the color options, which are great, Bluetooth, engravings, RGB bar, and some changes to the PCB and plate mounting. Let's get into it. If you look at this, a lot of the changes are to the looks department. Some interesting novelties, but not really something you should upgrade from the R1 for. But the big thing is, now they offer some neutral colors like black and white. That definitely goes a long way in keeping it neutral for the office. Overall, the look is pretty consistent with the original design, but I do like the PVD finishes and the shiny. The RGB bar here is sick because although I love my Korn and my Kohaku as endgames, I do wish I had some light or some flashiness sometimes. Without light RGB, I'm kind of a sad boy. An RGB bar is a nice touch that gives it some flair without being too over the top, like full acrylic or full underglow. It's just a little bit more tasteful. If you don't like this RGB bar, you can actually use the brass bar just like the original Windex, so you're good. Before, they only offered pour-on gasket mount, and now they offered top mount, so I wanted to try that first. I thought it was pretty solid, but after going back and listening again, it definitely sounded like it was missing something. Maybe some foam, maybe some tape, maybe some P foam, something. And that's because when I build a keyboard like this, I try to do it without foam, so I at least know what it sounds like without it. So this new board has top mount as an additional mounting option, but now has dual gasket mount, meaning that you can try two different ways to gasket. You have your original pour-on, which I avoided because I already knew how it sounded before. Overall, the internals looked about the same, so I tried the silicone gaskets, which are little arrowheads that slot into where the top mount screw would go. And I love that because it's slidable, it's removable, and it doesn't stress you out because you don't have to nail the pour-on adhesive every single time. The silicone gaskets actually act like little screws to hold the plate and PCB into place. Compared to the top mount sound, this was much deeper, much fuller, and much more pleasant to the ears. During the stream, I actually had a bunch of boards side by side, and a lot of people actually prefer the Windex sound over the other boards, such as the 910ME. To be fair, the 910ME is a very old school sound, it's not to everyone's preference, especially those that are used to nice deep sounds that these modern boards can provide. That's usually my main test for these boards. I know they're offering a lot of pour-on, a lot of P foam. Honestly, a lot of foam. If you look at the cross section, you got foam on top of the plate, you got foam beneath the plate, you got foam on the PCB, you got foam beneath the PCB, and then another layer of foam on the bottom of the case. It's excessive, but it's very popular in China, so that's why they offer it. I always want to check if it can survive without those foam pieces. So to reiterate, I didn't want to do the pour-on gasket because one, I already knew what it would sound like. Two, if you run the pour-on gasket, you can't actually take it off easily because adhesive is a one-time thing. Once you install it on, it's there. If you take it off, it's not going to come back the same because when you remove pour-on gaskets, it stretches a little bit, so you end up having to cut off some when you put it back down. It doesn't look good. If you do the top mount and the silicone gasket, so you can go silicone gasket, top mount, and switch back and forth, no problem. I always tinker, I always modify my boards, so when I'm locked down to one option, it doesn't feel great. What if I use another switch that sounds better with another mounting option? Because this is a hotspot PCB. I am using a PC plate, I am using standoffs, but hotspot means you can change the plate all the time. If you're only stuck with one mounting option, you're limiting a lot of the experimentation that you can do. And of course, I mentioned this before, the cross section shows that you can use pour-on foam on top of the plate. I wouldn't do it. It's super complicated, it stretches, and it's hard to really get that entire shape because a plate is rigid. These foams, they're flimsy and noodles. If you really want to do it, you can get a deeper, gaskety sound. But for me personally these days, I kind of want the switches to be a little bit louder. But it's there as an option, included in the package, so you don't have to find some tape or some foam and DIY your own mods. At the end of the day, the Windex R2 sounds best with a silicone gasket. In my opinion, it has a nice full sound even without the foams and extra pour-on layer on top of the plate. The big draw to the R2 that can get people to buy the R2 even when they already have the R1 is the Southpaw option. but they're only offering it if 100 people buy into it. And they didn't send us any protos, so I don't know what to make of it. What if it sounds worse? What if it doesn't function right? If you're willing to gamble and make that bet, you could buy into it, and if they hit the 100 MOQ, then they'll make it. If they don't, I guess they'll refund you. But man, I wish they just made it and sent me one because I kind of want one. In my opinion, it should have been them to bear the upfront cost of getting the prototype so reviewers can look at it so people would know what they're paying for. Really, the Southpaw layout for this, so the numpad's on the right. If it were on the left, it would make it killer because now you can have a keyboard that you could use for gaming because the right side is not changing from work mode to gaming mode, and you get the Southpaw numpad, which is not very common in customs. They definitely could have made a mark for themselves here. I wish they actually went for it, committed to it, and actually prototyped at least 1 or 2 to send out to reviewers, and maybe that would have got more people to buy. The biggest buff in R2 is the fact that this has a Bluetooth PCB. I really like it here. I don't know if there's a lot of numpad keyboards with Bluetooth that have the kind of quality of a custom keyboard. Having to bring another cable and connecting that in, especially if you're using docks and all that, it's a bit of a hassle, it's a bit annoying. So if I can go Bluetooth and remove one less item I have to bring to work, solid with me. Bluetooth has come to aluminum mechanical keyboards, and it's here to stay. And the original Windex had a little bit of issues with MacBooks, so let's check it out. Yeah, 170 WPM right there. Worked fine. Tested on my MacBook, just used a dongle, connected in, no problem. At the end of the day, this R2 is a solid improvement. Not something you have to buy if you already have the original R1, but giving more people an option to buy this product after the initial run is good. The 65% plus full-size numpad layout is not common, so you don't get an option to buy this very often, especially something that's heavy, quality, some wireless, gasket, all the fixings of a custom mechanical keyboard. They definitely make quality of life changes that new customers would appreciate, but I personally do get confused as to why these boards don't have FRO. I don't need it that much in my day-to-day workflow, but it seems like it's missing something. But hey, it's unique and some people dig this layout. Forgot to mention the price. This keyboard is $305 for a 65 plus, so probably mid-tier pricing, but it's going to be in stock for the first few units, then GB after. So if you want the more expanded colors, go for the GB, but if you're okay with the 4 color options, go for the in-stock. I'm always in for in-stock. So what do you think of this keyboard? I know it's an odd layout, but there's definitely people out there that want it. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.